someone would like to ask something, we have some time for questions.
Hello, thank you very much. I have maybe a sort of question for Frank. I'm not an expert on this, but I know that in ancient philosophy and in ancient religion, the Pythagorean theory of the universe and the Orphic music are often conflated or used together, so that Orphic music sort of becomes the principle by which the universe is organized. And in that sense, you could say that he is himself nature, organizing nature. And there is a book in the Metamorphoses about Pythagoras, I believe. It's not widely read. Maybe you have had a look at that, and maybe you can share some of your thoughts.
Yeah, very good question. I have not thought much about this, but to go into the first part, indeed, and Orpheus had, of course, was apparent in many cults as a religious figure who was exalted to beyond human as well. So you see that the way that religious communities thought about music as well, and in many philosophical currents about music, harmony is a figure of holism, and so Orpheus became a good character for representing this holism, also in religious and philosophical thought. Yes, I have not looked at the relations between the book on Pythagoras in the Metamorphoses itself and the Orpheus cycle. Although I know there is literature on the link between book 10 and 15, also as the ending of the second and third pentad. So there are structural links, and the philosophy of Pythagoras has, of course, been studied in relation to the Metamorphoses as a whole. From the top of my head, I would say it's not a problem to see those two together and to investigate in what way, for example, the Orpheus cycle figures as a supplement to that Pythagorean philosophy. Yes.
Another question? No.
Yes, I don't know if I have a question. I just want to thank you, all three of you, for the presentations, probably especially to Leo, for paying attention to the Tempest poetry. I didn't know, and that's the first thing I will do coming back to Krakow is to purchase the book. So thank you so much, and I'm also very happy that this problem of the gender metabola appeared in this conference. It's something very, very important, and I'm very, very grateful to have this Tiresias and this Adonis and this Kibala cult and all these problems which appears and are behind of this in this fantastic poetry, which is, well, how to say, just touching. So, and all these three presentations were connected with the poetry, and it's not a question, but Polish Nobel Prize poet Czesław Miłosz wrote a sentence, which is in Polish, maybe you can help me translate. Co nie ma cienia, istnieć nie ma siły, what means what has no shadow has no strength to exist. So here the shadow was connected with the idea of the locus amoenus, to give relief, but in my personal perception it was connected to the idea of creation, that the existence without shadow is incomplete. And there is also this, maybe that's connected with the previous question, that the picture of Orpheus, well, it's a tricky problem. The Pythagoreans and Orphism, you know, the book by Walter Burkert, Law and Science, and it's mainly we connect Pythagoreans with Apollo, rather, with Orpheus, which is connected to Dionysos. Maybe David can say more about this. But what is important, that, you know, there's one version of the Orphic myth where the Orpheus is being killed by Zeus because he revealed the mysteries of gods to humans. So he must have had some kind of, he's a figure, as we think about him, as a figure who had deep insight into the mysteries of gods. Of course, he was a creator of the mysteries of Eleusis, of Dionysian and others. So that's, I find it as a fantastic track, fantastic subject, and I want to thank you. And the same problems appeared also in Donato's presentation, and for me the conclusion of this is that what I like to say, that the only poets can save the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to join Chris in these remarks. The three papers were extraordinary, and I don't know if I want to ask something. I just wanted to thank you also, and to, well, maybe I would look into the Dionysian myth for your paper, Leo. Because yes, I agree. It would be very interesting to see how Dionysus crosses all these gender boundaries in their myths, no? And also, well, the reference to the Maenad in the text, in the Latin text of Ovid, that would be an interesting path for research, maybe. But well, and I wanted to ask Donato about D'Annunzio and the cinema, because I believe he had some relation, no, with the cinema at the beginnings. I don't know if well, this is a kind of metabole also of the culture in the 20th century, how poetry is transformed into image, and I think Gabriele D'Annunzio was kind of one of the first people aware of the power of
the potential
of this myth. I don't know if you can, if you have researched or thought about this possible interference with this Ovidian soul of D'Annunzio, because in a way, all this movement in Italy in the first part of the 20th century with the futurism, also with this is a huge revolution for the aesthetic, for the history of modern aesthetic. I don't know if you could say something.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, he foresaw the potential of the nascent silent cinema industry, and contrary to what his contemporary feared, he saw great potential in these aesthetics of the movement. And his mind went back to Ovid, to the metamorphosis he called cinematographic. And then he was digging deeper. He wrote the script of a movie titled Cabiria, one of the first blockbuster with a modern term that was released in the 30s. And he also wrote many other scripts, because he had this very accentuated flair for what appeared to be an emblems of modernity. And he got, prior to many others, I guess something similar can be said when internet first appeared, or when digital books first appeared. How many pedants were fearing that they were going to kill out literature, no? And this is it wasn't the case. So D'Annunzio can be taken as an example also of this. I'm sure if he lived in our present times, he would be a massive user of all the technology, communication, and I'm sure he would exploit them also for his artistry. Yeah, so I guess this is also an example that we can learn, we as a modern spectator and actors at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, or yes, a question for Frank. You know, Robin Nisbet always used to say that Ovid was too clever, and it's very difficult to work on Ovid because he's much more clever than any of us or all of us combined. So he furthermore cannot resist to introduce lots of jokes, and he's always mocking and making fun of his readers. So I perfectly agree that there are metapoetical, programmatic implications in Book 10, as there are in Book 1, in Book 5, which ends up pented with the songs of the Muses, Book 15. They're certainly programmatically very charged. But I've always wondered what he was trying to say when at the beginning of Book 11 he has the Bacchae kill him, and he is there absolutely powerless. Bacchae ululatus, with that strong Virgilian word, obstrepuere sono. So he's there. And have you thought about these problems? Is he really saying that, or is he just letting us think he's saying that first, afterward just saying another thing?
Yeah, this is an amazing question and a problem which I have thought about. And the way I think about this, I maybe do not have a lot to build it upon, but wait, let me first say, indeed, there is a lot of humor in the passage, of course. If you look at the interaction between Georgic's Book 4 and Orpheus there, a lot of the tragedy is being subverted into something ironical, and the passage at the beginning of Book 11 has a certain irony to it as well. There's an entire book, you have listened to Orpheus, and then in 60 verses it's over. How I would like to read it is that the way that Orpheus has reified his position as this narrator, in some point in Book 10, you might forget as a reader that Orpheus is the one singing because of the embedded narration takes such a long time, and to be pulled out of that again at the end of Book 10 and the beginning of Book 11 to come back to a kind of ironic reality where that mise en abîme of Orpheus being able to give himself his superiority is immediately abated again. So there's a lot. That's how I would like to read it, and there's also a lot of things to say about the fact that these are these Thracian women. There's something to say about the force between Apollonian and Dionysiac. There's something about the sexual preferences that Orpheus tells and the fact that they would kill him because he wouldn't date women, as a common interpretation. But I like to interpret it mostly as an ironic play of that his superior position is snatched away again, and yeah, that's how I would think about it now. I don't know if yeah.
Somehow the art of the muses is somehow also defeated in book 6. That they win in book 5. Minerva feels very satisfied, and then he goes to Arachne just in the beginning of book 6, and she fails, and she feels very frustrated. So maybe you're right. So thank you very much.
Yeah, if I can just respond, I think you can pull this to the last pentad as well, where the metamorphosis stops, but it does not stop entirely. And as a history of the world, the moment that the metamorphosis ends is the moment that the world continues. It is up to his time, and there the author is done all of a sudden as well. Yeah.
Any other interventions, questions? So.
I had a question for Leo. I just wanted to say thank you very much. I love that poem, and I wanted to ask a bit about what you think of Tempest's act of reception. Like, what exactly is going on there? Because obviously, and I completely agree with you that what they're doing is, adding this corrective to the Ovidian Tiresias, and saying how a story of gender fluidity is much more about kind of undefinability. It's much more about experience and fluidity than about just a sort of prop for this story about who experiences more pleasure. And I think that's really similar to what is going on in Ali Smith's Girl Meets Boy. So what Ali Smith does in that novel is adapt the story of Ephus, but rather than ending with a kind of celebration of the normative model of marriage, it remains a sort of undefinable queer relationship. And yeah, I just wanted to ask you what you thought about that in relation to what was going on in kind of the 80s, 70s and 80s with sort of feminist, like, resistant readings of Ovid, and saying that Ovid treats his women as props or metaphors, and sort of uses their bodies to just create witticism. And whether or not that's what's going on here, is it a resistant reading, or like what's going on?
Thank you. Those are some really interesting questions. I will have to admit that I'm not massively familiar with feminist critiques of Ovid in the 80s, but I think that has a really interesting application to how Ovid deals with the myth of Hermaphroditus. Ovid is the first to write about this myth, as opposed to having it represented in statues and in art. And he does kind of use Hermaphroditus as a kind of voyeuristic, deeply problematic way of looking at gender. To answer the first part of your question about how Tempest receives Ovid, I think you're right in that there is definitely a kind of reception of resistance, absolutely. And what I really love about Tempest is they don't look to Ovid and see how they can make a modern version of Ovid. They look to Ovid and say, what can Ovid do for me? And they kind of fill in the gaps and use what they like and add stuff that's not there. So it's much more about what Lorna Hardwick calls fuzzy connections, or Emily Greenwood calls frail connections. You can't really pinpoint passages in this text, which is an exact interpretation of a certain line in Ovid. That's not really how Tempest works. Tempest takes the ideas that Ovid uses and modernizes them, questionizes them, problematizes them, and makes them relevant to the modern day. I mean, of course, Ovid has relevances to the modern day, but Tempest adds new dimensions to how Ovid is relevant and really makes us think about the way we look at the ancients and how the ancients inform how we look at ourselves. So I hope that's not too vague an answer, but yeah, thank you for your question. Those are really important issues that I can't possibly answer in a few minutes. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question to Donato, and I'm sorry if I'm an ignorant when we talk about Gabriele D'Annunzio, because I don't know his poetry well. I just know some facts of his biography. But you mentioned this this Tristia about the Sarmatian wind and this coldness. What I think that Ovid does in Tristia is that he tries to underline his loneliness and his past life in Rome and his life during the exile wherever it was. But exist any other connections between Tristia and Gabriele D'Annunzio poetry, like this description of coldness, winds, melancholy, etc.?
Thank you for your question. I do believe so. It exists in much deeper ways. There is a lot of memorial depth that can be a unifying trait between the two authors. In terms of solitude, of course, beyond these references to the coldness, that it was a quotation from D'Annunzio, but I guess there is an accord in terms of spiritual depth between these two souls and between their twilight years, which is very fascinating. Also because in both cases, their late works as well as their late years are pretty much dramatically different from the way we received them. Both of them were leading protagonists in the culture and in society. D'Annunzio was a preeminent personality, not only in literature, but also in politics. He conquered the town of Rijeka, for example, which was one of his latest glory as a public figure before he retreat into the shadow. We thank you, Professor. You opened a very interesting issue. Yeah, also that's probably the most, the innermost similarity. The exploration of shadows, the self-exploration of shadows, and this kind of supremacy of the innermost ego. I guess this is the most fascinating traits that we can see as a common, as a commonality between the two authors.
Thank you.
I thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, and I give back the stage to Professor David Hernandez.
Yeah, you can stay here for these closing remarks. I will be very, very brief. I don't want to speak too much, but some concluding remarks on behalf of the organization. It has been 3 very intense days of conference. As you all know, discussions, panels, round tables, lectures,
and it has come to an end, I think, with a great success. We are very happy and honored to have hosted this colloquium here in Madrid at the Complutense and the National Archaeological Museum. We had, as you know, 3 keynote lectures, 2 round tables, 14 papers, and all around this concept of metabolae, which has proven to be very, very rich and with a lot of implications. Both Miguel and Chris have recently pointed out in the debate all the variety of meanings from the etymology to the concrete uses of the word in the Greek literature, in the Latin translations. But I would like to draw your attention at the 2 other classical words of the title, crisis and transformation. We have rendered or paraphrased or metaphrased this metabole with these 2 words, which, as you well know, have also Greek and Roman and Latin origin. Crisis, on the first hand, the idea of crisis. We are in a pandemic crisis, in an energetic crisis. These issues have been addressed here in the conference. From crino, risk, opportunity, a judgment, an ordeal, very representative of the times we are living, we are experiencing now, no? And dealing also this crisis with, in the tradition, in the Greek origin, with medicine, with health, with politics, with philosophy, gnoseology, and many other senses. But also transformation, shape, forma, as a change of shape. We have been dealing with metamorphosis as a key concept of metabole. And also in the political sense, the political forms have been dealt with in this conference. Medical vocabulary, political vocabulary, but also other nuances and ideas. So now, if you allow me, so for five minutes, I would like to make some remarks on the overall results of the program, which I think are very, very noteworthy. Many of these issues we have dealt with the change of figures, with the change of shapes, forms in politics, poetics, music, medicine, in all kind of all, even in biological sense. No, we have started with a wonderful lecture by Professor Moure. I would like to remember that metabiosis or this symbiosis, no, of what the remora, the fish, is doing with the shark is one of the living together processes of 2 creatures in biology, which I really enjoy. Biology is very mythical also. It has a very mythical way of the vocabulary also. We have started with metabolism, metabiosis, metabole, in the way of the metamorphosis of this word, the remora, from Latin to Spanish, and of course the Greek precedent. Then the first session, we have dealt with vocabulary of politics, one of the main areas of our interest in this conference, from archaic stasis to classical political thought, and especially with the Platonic semantic shift, as addressed by Daniel Sutton, for example, up to the neck level of these Greek political forms, again with the shapes, no, of politics in the monarchies of the Hellenistic period in Asia Minor, and even in almost in India, no? And some notes on ruler cult in the Hellenistic world. So from the archaic to late Greek periods. Session 2, metabole in late antique adaptations, has dealt with this metabole in the most ever-changing period of the ancient world, no? Which is late antiquity. From the Christian metabole, also the Christian transition to metanoia, as Professor Bielaski has also reminded of, the Christian cult of saints, and also the late survivals of paganism in Neoplatonism. Very interesting, the transformations of the genre, this very old genre of the hymn, of the religious hymn, in philosophy, as in the case of Proclus. The first roundtable, Metabole in Literature, with Professors Goldhill, Herrero, Pirovano, and Signes, dealt with a poikilia, or a varietio, to follow this rhetorical use of metabole, of this word in literature, no? From antiquity, from Aristotle, and Latin rhetoric, Herrero and Pirovano, and until late antiquity and Byzantine receptions, paraphrases, translations, and reuses of or reworkings of classical works. So. The third session, transformations of Latin literature, we have seen a lot of polai metabolae also, no? From Virgil, and the change of fortune, the reversals of fortune in the Aeneis, up to the image of Rome as a host in Propertius, and of course this idea of the Latin interpretatio of Greek originals as a key sense of metabole for the Romans. The second keynote lecture by Professor Holmes Henderson addressed the reverse of fortune in the current situation of the teaching of classics in Britain and all across Europe, with great concerns, risk, menaces, but also I think this is a kind of opportunity to rethink what we're doing at colleges, universities. Secondary education was a key subject there, no? To see if we can make it upside down, no? This reversal of fortune as a comical one, as a positive one. No? Let's see if we can survive this challenge. Session 3 on classical receptions, we have seen some transformation, very lively and enriching perspectives of the classical legacy, with 3 case studies ranging from the 19th to the 21st century in the Eastern European world, in the Central European theatrical experiences of the Volksbühne, which has also a long history, and some very successful contributions showing how Ovid's Metamorphoses, he was our favorite here, no, in this colloquium, anticipated very in a very suggestive way several later debates, no, in the case of catasterism. Well, Ovid Metamorphoses as a leitmotif of this program, no? He anticipated later debates on aesthetical, sociopolitical, even ecological issues through modern trends in philosophical, theatrical interpretations, or in the myth of the heroic transformations in stars, or in the anabasis, apotheosis, catabasis, etc., and naturally the receptions, no, in modern culture. The second roundtable was about metabole in culture, with the participation of 4 scholars who dealt with different perspectives on this issue. From the point of view of the longue durée of antiquity, from the transition from morality to literacy in the Athenian culture, to Aristotelian politics, or Cicero's transformation of the Roman political system, until the question of the peculiar adaptation of islands and their environments in the historical process of late antiquity. Today's lecture by Professor Bielaski presented a very enriching journey through the manifold implications of metabole, as we have just discussed, and I will not be dwelling too long on this because of this reason, from a very wide perspective in language, literature, philosophy, from the very etymologies and linguistic features of the word, up to philosophy, medicine, politics, etc., and the uses of the word in the classical sources from early antiquity until late antiquity. Last but not least, this last session, fourth session, as we have just enjoyed now with this discussion, I think we have closed in the best way this journey with these 3 presentations, opening new paths for research and for the exploration of modern identities, on how Ovid is a milestone for us from the beginnings of the 20th century, and it will still be very relevant for all of us. No? Tiresian metabolé. Ovidian metabolé is a bit in the Italian literature, in ecology, in gender studies. Well, it was a very beautiful end for this conference. So I want just to summarize my feelings with gratitude, honor, and pride of having hosted this wonderful colloquium here. Just a few last words to thank the European network, especially Susanne Henrich and Dimitar Becher, because of their help. This would have been possible without them, as you all are aware of. And I want to mention also Marcin Walewski, which is not here, but in spirit. The Department of Classics of Complutense University has supported this event very warmly, and the Dean of Philology and Philosophy also, on the faculties that you visited these 2 last days, this beautiful building of the Belle Époque of the Spanish Republic, the sponsorship of the SEC, the Sociedad de Estudios Clásicos, Spanish Society for Classical Studies of the delegation in Madrid was also very important for us. And without the collaboration of our friends, students, colleagues of the department, Federica, Rodrigo, Pera, Miguel, Paloma, Juan, all the colleagues of the department that were in the debates, and of course our PhD students, Pablo Rodriguez Valdés, who was just here helping us with the debates, Adrián, Manuel, Ignacio, the technicians of the faculty. Well, thank to you all. Yes, last remark to wish that we see each other soon and some other occasion of this network, and to wish you a safe and healthy travel home. Thanks a lot to everyone, and well, I hope to see you very, very soon again in Madrid. Thank you. Yeah. We have missed you.
Thanks to you, David, for being such an excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, were you going to say something else? I want to take a broad photo. Can we break COVID regulations for a minute?
Sure.
Yeah, that's the word.
Oh,
Yes, just I wanted, on the behalf of the participants, I wanted to thank the organizers.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm personally proud to cooperate with Lady and Ms. Miguel. The organization is perfect, and we felt warmly accepted. And thanks to Ana Jimenez, who had the opening speech, and also to the director of the classics department, Professor Isabel Velasquez. And during this 15 years or more, I've been cooperating with at least 3 Secretary General of European, and there is one person never mentioned here who is current on leave, but current Secretary General of European, Martin Walewski, because this happens, his knowledge, competences, and animated the conversation with him about the current issues in Europe, in my part of Europe, in our part of Europe. And I feel really, really privileged to meet you and to have this opportunity to talk. So, of course, I forgot about probably 20 people to thank, but just on behalf of the participants, thank you so much for this nice event, and again to Susan. Yes, thank you.
Y gracias al Museo Arqueológico Nacional por habernos permitido esta última sesión aquí. Gracias a ellos también. Por supuesto que los he mencionado al principio en mi breve alocución en castellano, y en el final también corresponde dar las gracias al anfitrión de hoy.